Back baseball fans to the 78-81 draft. Looking at second round picks now, starting at the top. First, I got to announce the Commissioner Award pick, the 33rd overall pick, awarded to the White Sox this year. A pick selected between the first and second rounds, and they decided to add the Jim Essien card in 1981, which is actually pretty good, believe it or not. Hit 308. So we know they lose Brian Downing to the Angels, but that's not bad, getting a 3-way catcher anyway. So, now that the second round begins, the Expos are on the clock, and the Expos took Steve Rogers, 1978 card. And of course, if you want to take two cards from the same year, the second card not as good as the first, you can, and that's what they did. They took Buddy Schultz. And so what this means is Buddy Schultz becomes the 8th round draft choice of the Expos. They just announce it now, just because they have the rights to the card. It speeds up the draft when I know that nobody else can take him. Oakland, in the second round, they took Armas, and you can see the amazing A's of Billy Martin. Look at this guy, 81 Steve McCatty. This is the wild card year. Yeah. So quickly, it seems like it wasn't that long ago when the 70 Dynasty A's were doing their thing, and then all of a sudden Billy Martin comes in 1980, Ricky Henderson, so forth. All right, the Cubs, they took a couple guys here. They would take their 78 Rick Russell, and then they also take a 78... Where is he? Bobby Mercer. Doesn't have that many good years left. Particularly, this is probably his last good year in the field. Then he starts to become like a DH type. Goes back to the Yankees at a certain point. All right, now the White Sox, now picking for the third time in the top 38 picks of the draft. They took, my goodness, Oscar Gamble. They took Jim Essien. They added two more guys. They have 4 players already in this draft. They took a first guy off the waiver list. But first of all, they took 78 Francisco Barrios, last good year with them. But off the waiver pool, because they needed defense and so forth, they took 78 Juan Benitez. Interestingly, good card. A 1-3 arm in center field, always valuable, power both ways. And the first guy, actually, who was put on waivers to be taken in the draft. Portland, picking 5th. They also doubled up with picks. They would take Terry Poole. Notice the 1-0 defense in the outfield. Hits 289 for like 3 years in a row or something like that. And they took the one good Eric Rasmussen card in this era. The 79 as well. Again, the cards are in the same year. 79 Poole, 79 Rasmussen. You see, that means that this team says, we don't want any more guys from 1979. We're locking that up now. The Mets are next, and they decided, you know what, after bumping up old Joel Youngblood in the first round, they said, let's just take Ray Knight. I know it squeezes Pete Rose out of third base, but he's hitting 318, and let's take Steve Henderson too. I believe we take Steve Henderson, do we not? Yeah, let's take him too, because he also hits 300. And Pete Rose has to, unfortunately, you have a problem here now. You got to move him to DH. There's no other place for him. But the Mets said, you know what? Who cares? So we got all these 300 hitters now. Ray Knight, Steve Henderson, and Joel Youngblood hitting 350. Let's do it this way. Let's try something new for the Mets. The pitching and the lame offense was run its course. So now they're trying to hit their way to the playoffs. All right, the 70 Blue Jays. Not a very sexy pick. They got a couple guys. They held on to Rick Cerone. Remember this -4 arm that went to the Yankees in 80? And everybody said, oh, they got a replacement for Thurman Munson for 1 year. But in this retelling of the tale, we're going to have the Blue Jays hold on to Rick Cerone. They'll get that card for 2 more years. And they also added Jim Clancy, another 80 player. So you got Steve Clancy and Alexander, and they'll add Ross Grimsley later in the draft. Dodgers. Well, they added 2 keepers in this round from the same year. 78 Reggie Smith. The defense isn't there, but the 295 and 29 is there. And they also added Bill Russell's best hitting card during this time, where he gets a 286. Both 78 cards. And in the next couple rounds, they'll have to get themselves Dusty Baker and Davey Lopes, but they got a couple more rounds before those guys pop up. All right, we'll take a stop here and pick it up in a moment. All right, the 9th pick in the draft, Texas Rangers. Boy, what a fun draft they're having. So their first round pick, they took their 80 guys, Buddy Bell, who had 329, and Mickey Rivers, who had 333. Back to back. That's their 1980. They're more than happy locking those 2 years up. Then they followed that up in the second round by taking this version of Richie Zisk, who actually was a Seattle Mariner. But he hits 311, and this is his best year of those 4 years. They don't mind locking up DH. They'll just send, they don't care about defense. They'll send Rusty Staub in a right field. Oh boy, instead of Richie Zisk. Some teams are kind of desperate to how they do things. All right, this is a fun pick. So, Atlanta, 10th pick in the draft. If you remember in the first round, they took Jeff Burrows. You think, oh, Atlanta goes for sticks. Well, guess what they did in the second round, folks? In the second round of the draft, they locked up the back end of the bullpen, and boy, did they do it in style. So, Garber, they actually had Garber in 81. They traded for Soche in the offseason, and then they improved his card to this 81 card, which is like a one-year wonder for the Tigers. The Tigers wouldn't need him because they'll eventually get Willie Hernandez. He only had 49 innings. But how do you like that at the back end of the Atlanta bullpen suddenly? Weird. I wouldn't expect the Braves to dominate in that particular category. All right, the Kansas City Royals are having just a kind of okay draft, nothing splashy. They took Dennis Leonard in the first round, and all they could find in the second round. 1980 John Wathan, catch first, left field, has some speed, 305. One of his best years. He hit 300 two other times. He hit 300 3 times in a 5-year period. All right, Giants with the 12th pick in the draft. Okay, big trade in the offseason. Seemed like a big trade anyway. They traded for Rick Burleson because the poor Red Sox could not have enough money to keep him, is basically how you have to look at it. They couldn't afford Jim Rice, Carlton Fisk, Carl Yastrzemski, and Dwight Evans, and somebody had to go, and it was Burleson. So they decided to send him to the National League where he wouldn't eventually hurt them. Probably the best defensive shortstop the Giants have had since Roger Metzger. So this is a retelling of a tale. Burleson never played for the Giants, but he will now. And that could be kind of fun, having him out in the National League West. And they also get Willie McCovey's last productive card. All right, 13th. Team 13, the Cardinals. Here's a nice little move here. Move for the future. While Lou Brock is occupying DH, Dane Orge is going to have to wait his turn. Bob Forsch, however, gets added in the year of 81. And so they took another 1981 player, a future guy, and it would be this guy, Tommy Herr. 81, he's a 2E8, great top line there. And we know he'll have some good years coming up in 83 and so forth, so he'll play second base now. Would be a candidate for Rookie of the Year, though I don't think he'll be that productive, but he is a candidate. Next up, 14th pick, the Clevetown Indians. They were trying to push Dennis Eckersley to the Red Sox in a trade, but the Red Sox said, we don't have a spot for Eckersley yet. So the Indians said, I guess we'll just take him, and they did. So here he is, Dennis Eckersley. 78 Eckersley, and pitched for the Red Sox. But guess what? The Red Sox have no room in the rotation, so the Indians kept him for 1 extra year. So they're delaying his move to Boston. And they also ended up adding Dwayne Kuiper as a 2, rangy second baseman that gets lefties and righties at a 283 clip. No home runs. So that's not bad. I think the Indians are happy to hold on to Eckersley for 1 more year. All right, the Padres, a team that suddenly looks really smart in the carryover league that you wouldn't expect it in MLB. Let's see here. Well, they went into their corner outfield spots in one fell swoop. They had Richards and Lynn Jones in center field. They put Bobby Bonds in right. They put Johnny Grubb in left. And suddenly they got one of the most potent outfields in baseball. Way to go, Padres. All right, the Yankees. And then we'll be halfway through. And the Yankees, I don't get it. They're not bad picks. They're just expected picks. Nothing flashy. They took Brigetti. And they finally clicked into Tommy John. He cost them 2 draft tokens, so you might as well take him. And the thing about John is he's never really statistically that great. He just doesn't give up homers and has a low ERA. But 21-game winner, 1979. And as you can tell here now, they have maxed out their lefties. So look at this rotation. You have 4 starter 8s, all pitching on 3 days rest. 25-win Guidry. So the Yankees can't get their pitching going. And in the back of the bullpen, the righties Tidrow and Righetti, who was actually a starter 781, is going to be the lefty closer replacing Sparky Lyle, who the Yankees are dangling in a trade. Righetti an upgrade in Lyle. Put him in the bullpen. He'll eventually move there anyway. So that's what the Yankees are up to. Hope it works. Good luck. Haven't had much luck in the carryover league the last couple years. The Yankees have been embarrassed by the Orioles and Red Sox winning the World Series, and Yankees coming up with nothing. All right, another quick break, and then we'll resume the second half of the second round. Here we are, the second part of the second round, pick 17, Vegas. How in the heck is Las Vegas making smart picks? Well, they are. If you recall, they took Al Bunbury in the first round. They double up in the second round by taking home. How about a 300 hitting shortstop named Bill Almone? Because he only did it once. He was a highly touted player. He really didn't have much of a career, though. And they also happen to end up with this guy, Milt May, another 300 hitter. They've drafted 3 straight 300 hitters. Lowly Las Vegas. Maybe not lowly for much longer. All right, the Twins. In part of the trade carousel, we saw the Jerry Koosman era ends in New York, and it begins here in Minnesota with a 20-win season for Koosman with the Twins. So they got his card, and they also doubled up by adding, of course, perennial DH Glenn Adams. Arizona. They took Fernando with the first pick, and in the second round, they, of course, had the keeper Tito Valentine. It's a shame to see Expo players go elsewhere, but it happens. And there you go. They are lumped into the expansion team category, for better or for worse. All right, next up, the Tigers. The last team here who didn't make the playoffs. Oh, yeah, I got the wrong thing here, but we'll fix that. Okay, so the Tigers are having an okay draft. They took Dave Rozema, who's actually pretty darn good with a first-round pick, though it was 314. And now they have Milt Wilcox, his 81 card. And that finishes the pitching staff because they double that up with Tom Niedenfuhr, who was actually on the Dodgers in 81. So by making these moves in the first and second rounds, the Detroit Tigers are probably the first team to completely lock in their pitching staff. Rozema, Wilcox, Underwood, and Morris. 2 lefties in the pen, Lolich, Niedenfuhr, Hiller, and Littell. That's an outstanding bullpen. Look at these ERAs. 220, 235, 381 for Niedenfuhr, though it's a good card, and 154. Tigers locked up their pitching staff. Good news. All right, Pirates. Not crazy with their draft, folks, because not crazy with the years they're selecting players. It is what it is. It just doesn't really fall in. Sometimes teams just fall into it. So they took Candelaria, and then they followed it up. They had to take the 80 Jim Bibby because he can pitch on 3 days rest. Where's the stats? There's the stats. Because Candelaria and Bibby are the 1-2 punch with Kiesman and Buddy Solomon. And with their other pick, they took Bill Robinson as a corner outfielder who destroys lefties. It's okay. I'm just not really crazy about that. All right, next up, Boston. We talked about, well, let's take a look at, always fun to look at this team. So let's look at the pitching, shall we? Remember we talked to the Indians, no room for Eckersley? Tiant Lee, Bob Stanley starting. He had a good year starting, by the way. Renko, who's okay, though I'd kick Renko out. But they have Curtis, Bonson, Bradford, and Randy Moffett in the bullpen. So that's why Eckersley has to wait a moment. They took Dwight Evans' devastating card in the first round. And in the second round, they double up by taking Jim Rice's monster card of 78 along with Carlton Fisk's monster card of 78. And the rich keep getting richer. That's Boston. All right, Florida Marlins finally add guys. They improved 2 guys in the first round. They made Jeff Leonard and Bo Diaz better, but they were stuck at 12 guys. So they added their 2 keepers, or 1 keeper and 1 rookie. Hal McRae, one of the keepers from 1980. But the nice little pick they added to the pitching staff, David Palmer, who actually pitched for the Expos in 1980. And what this does is it puts Palmer in the 4th spot of the rotation, and Vernon Rule, who was fine, is now in the bullpen. So that was Florida's strategy. One more team and then another break. Milwaukee, their big move was their first round move by getting 41 homer Ben Ogley. From here on out, it's just kind of ordinary. 278 pitchers are added. Jim Slayton, who can pitch on 3 days rest, and Bob McClure's best year out of the bullpen, which isn't that great a year, but it's Milwaukee. All right, take a quick break in the final last quarter of the second round. Okay, next up, the 25th pick in the draft, surprising Seattle. They took Gossage with their first round pick. They went to the playoffs and they decided, let's just make these ridiculous moves, since who knows how long this little window of greatness will last. So they got Gossage in the first round for 1 year, the 78 year, and then eventually he'll transfer to the Yanks, who had no room for him. But now they're getting cocky, and they improved a guy instead of adding a guy, but it's Tom Paciorek. They improved him from a 280 hitter to a 326 hitter. So, expansion teams, I don't know about that strategy, but I would call that a cocky, confident move by a team who thinks they're going to surprise. So, we'll call it that. You know, the White Sox added 4 guys, and so far Seattle has added 1 guy, just to give you some idea how the draft's going for 2 franchises. All right, Colorado picking 26. Oh, they did a nice job. After getting Blue Monday in the first round, my goodness, they doubled up in the second round by taking Ron Reed, his best year in the bullpen with an ERA at 220. And, you know, Jason Thompson's still probably his best early year with the Detroit Tigers in 78. I don't know why this guy bounced around to the Angels and the Pirates. I mean, he's just a solid dude, but he's a Rocky. All right, Phillies are continuing to do no-brainer stuff, just obvious stuff. Their picks take about 10 seconds. Well, 2 seconds in some cases. So they're, first round pick, 81 Schmidt. Okay. Second round, they double up by taking the 78 year of Luzinski and the 78 year of Bob Boone. And that 78 is a playoff year, of course. So the offense is doing pretty well. They got Boone. They don't have a first baseman yet. A couple second baseman, a third baseman, a shortstop, left, center, and right. They're set. Ohio players making moves. They took Bill Madlock and Mumphrey in the first round, and they double up in the second round by taking George Hendrick, 1980, and Dan Driesen, 1980. And now this team is, wow. The surprise darlings of the Fall League. Look at this team, how loaded they are. D.H. Easler. They don't have a catcher yet. Driesen at first, Cash at second, Madlock at third. Ronnie Scott can play short, Jerry White in left, Mumphrey in center, Hendrick in right. They got Mike Norris, Vida Blue, Joaquin Andahar, Darrell Jackson, McLaughlin, Grant, whatever. They need a catcher, and they're ready to rock. All right, Houston, down to the Final Four. Houston took old Joe Sambito in the first round. Of course, you knew Jose Cruz would be taken soon, and he was. Jose Cruz in the second round, along with his teammate Mark Lemangelo. 78 Astros, both of them. Okay. All right. The California Angels. Now, this is interesting. Really interesting move here. Remember, they took Brian Downing in the first round. Now, let me kind of take you through this. So Baylor's a 79 MVP, right? Brian Downing, 79, ridiculous card. Ron Jackson's got a nice card. Bobby Grich has his best card. But they added 81 Carney Lansford by improving him from a 78 card. It cost him a draft choice. Now, 81 Lansford actually plays for the Red Sox. But you know what? The Red Sox aren't too concerned about it. And the reason is because next year is 1982, and some guy named Wade Boggs will be coming to the Red Sox next year, so they are not overly concerned. And then now it's going to set up a pretty interesting situation between three third basemen, Wade Boggs, Carney Lansford, and Doug DeCinces, who becomes the Angel third baseman. So next year it'll be interesting to see. Do the Angels move out of this Lansford card, or do they simply decide they don't want Doug DeCinces, who helps the Angels get to the 1982 American League Championship Series? All right, final two teams. The Big Red Machine. You'll love these picks. Guaranteed. You'll love these picks. Okay, so we could have taken the 81 Johnny Bench card, and eventually we will, but it's still too early to do it. The 81 Johnny Bench card, it's 300. But it's got a +2 arm. I just can't see Johnny Bench playing with a +2 arm for 4 years in a row. So we'll go with the 79 Bench. The on-base percentage is very good this year. And joining him, another 79 card. The 79 card of George Foster. Remember, 79, the Reds did win the West. And in the first round, they took Tom Seaver. Their pitching staff is locked up, and they bring back the exact same rotation with a different Seaver card. Seaver, Soto, Ochinko, Price. This is the same pitching staff that was in the World Series with a better Tom Seaver. And last, the World Championship Orioles. Oh, you're going to hate one of the moves. It wasn't a move. It was a part of the trade carousel. So we know that Mike Flanagan, was the first round pick as a Cy Young Award winner. But they double up in the second round by taking, this guy, the ace, Jim Palmer, who didn't win the Cy Young. Maybe he did win in 78, I don't know. But anyway, they got Palmer, Flanagan, McGregor, Martinez. They have room for one more pitcher in the bullpen. But the sickening move was because in the trade carousel, they picked up Larry Heisel. Larry Heisel's last good year is this card of 1978. Oh my goodness. 34 home runs and a 290 average. And the Orioles are going to put him in center field because they don't have one. They got Lowenstein in left. They're going to put Heisel in center. And they're going to have Kenny Singleton in right field. But my goodness. We can't have this happen. 34 home runs into that Baltimore lineup that won the World Series last year. Then again, they only did that to keep up with the Red Sox. And I have no clue what the Yankees are going to do. They got to hope that Righetti doesn't give up a run in relief all year or something. All right, that's it for the second round of the 78-81 draft. Thanks for checking it out. We'll see you next time.